Watch this.
Ahead for you on this Thursday edition of the 208. Former state lawmaker Brandon Durt has to find a different path to a career in education. After a legal review of Idaho's state code, the State Board of Education says he's not qualified to be the superintendent of the West Bonner School District. Ever since the tragic events of September 11, 2001, airports across the country have tightened their security to help keep people safe. And today, the first officer ever assigned to the Boise Airport K-9 unit is clocking out for the last time. Freak Alley in downtown Boise is getting a fresh new look this week. We'll introduce you to some of the artists that are putting down a fresh paint on a freaky spot. 208 starts now. Throughout the summer months, we have watched quite a story unfold over in the West Bonner County School District. You may remember this. In June, former state lawmaker and state superintendent candidate Brandon Durt was appointed superintendent for West Bonner. By a vote of 3-2, Durt was approved by the school board there. Those two no votes, though, they raised a major question. Was Mr. Durt even eligible to be the superintendent? One of the requirements for Durt to get the job, or any superintendent job in the state of Idaho, is to have 4 years of full-time certified experience working with students while under contract with an accredited school, which Durt doesn't have. So he went ahead and applied for an emergency provisional certificate through the state of Idaho. And there's been chatter for weeks about what the State Board of Education would do with the application. Would they approve it? Was it a rubber stamp? Would there be a conversation? Well, here's your big payoff. We learned today. A letter signed by State Board Executive Director Matt Freeman explains that there is no pathway for Durt to be superintendent at this time. There are a few big takeaways here in this letter. First, though, the decision by West Bonner's school board to hire Durt prompted a legal review of Idaho statutes and administrative rules, according to the state board. There was question simply because West Bonner wanted an uncertified person to serve as superintendent, so they thought they'd look into it. So the state board admits that they have issued emergency provisional certificates to administrators on 3 separate occasions since the year 2015. With that said, though, the board found that the review, quote, concluded that Idaho code only authorizes the issuance of emergency provisional certificates to teachers. The state board does not have legal authority to grant certificates to administrators or to waive the administrator certificate, the letter says. The conclusions of this letter goes on to say, quote, absent Mr. Durt meeting all 5 requirements for a superintendent endorsement under Idaho code, there is no pathway for Mr. Durt to obtain the legally required certification to serve as the West Bonner County School District Superintendent. So West Bonner now needs to find another person to be their superintendent, and we do know that Durt can still work for the district in some capacity if he wanted to, but we'll see where that goes. The question you may have at home, will we see a legal challenge to all of this? Who knows? Well, maybe Mr. Durt knows if he wants to challenge this legally, and speaking of which, he took to Twitter to respond to this letter today, saying, quote, the Idaho State Board of Education curiously decided it no longer had authority to grant emergency provisional certificates to any administrator applicant. This decision was not limited to me, he writes. However, the timing is particularly strange. The tweet continues, certainly as the state board acknowledged, they have granted them in the past. In fact, they granted one just a couple of months ago for an applicant in the West Bonner County School District. Further, it seems odd that the state board would not rescind an emergency certification that it knew it didn't have the authority to grant if that is their new position. That's what Mr. Durt writes, and he concludes his tweet saying that, quote, this was a discriminatory act by a board run by those with a political axe to grind. They will be held accountable for their discriminatory actions, end quote, for Mr. Durt. So we'll be sure to follow this situation. I know this is not going to be the end of it. I will add this. The next school board meeting up there should be interested. We'll keep you posted. Conversation surrounding sexual assault kits has evolved over the last decade here in the state of Idaho. And a big change in the Gem State, the Idaho Sexual Assault Kit Initiative. And it was created to look at the processes of sexual assault evidence kits in Idaho. They're still working to expand that, and it includes now educating police, law enforcement on how to work with, how to speak with victims and survivors of trauma. In a closed-door meeting today, the ISAKI team talked about what resources that they're developing to train law enforcement to better understand and help sexual assault survivors. A big part, how to speak to survivors and how to recognize trauma responses within the mind and body. Matthew Guillemette, the Idaho State Police Forensic Service Lab Director, details the difference they hope to make.
We recognize that law enforcement is very busy and they're taking calls and investigating crime. They're very, very busy. However, we also recognize, and they recognize too, the need for continuing education and to be educated on the most current topics that are out there. So what we've done is we've invested through this group, we've asked the group, what trainings do law enforcement need? And then we develop those trainings both online, on demand, and then live.
And there are a lot of resources and trainings available to law enforcement, and ISAKI is trying to encourage officers and law enforcement who have free time to log on and take their online courses if they can't be there in person. And for larger agencies, ISAKI tells us that they've had to make sure that the courses fit in with the officer's training window and also match with what they're authorized to take part of their position. And as of this week, ISAKI trainings, they tell us, with help from the Idaho Peace Officer Standards and Training, they have recorded 62 completions. Organizers are hoping to see that number go up big time in the near future. And I'll tell you, if you want to learn more about this full initiative, our Alexandra Duggan has an extended write-up available for you right now at ktvb.com. Well, this week in history, our country changed forever. You know this. 22 years ago, 19 terrorists hijacked 4 airplanes across the United States. They crashed into the Pentagon, the World Trade Center in New York City. The 9/11 attacks killed nearly 3,000 people on American soil. And it was at that moment that our national defense tightened across the country, specifically at airports, with the expansion of the Transportation Security Agency, TSA. Now, those lines in airports, they help keep us safe and work to stop events like 9/11 from ever happening again. And right here in Boise, one integral part of that machine is singing his swan song today. Officer Anthony Damer was the first officer on the Boise Airport K-9 unit. It was a team created as a direct response to the September 11th attacks. 22 years later, and today, it's his last day on the force. Here's Andrew Bartline.
How are you today? Super. Got me a dog.
Around these parts,
Lubo.
a working dog.
Up, up.
K-9 Lubo.
There it is.
Or rather,
Yeah, that's a tough
there they are.
There you go. I got some free bags.
Every single day.
And we've been doing that for a very long time.
Officer Anthony Damer's done it for 22 years. And by no coincidence,
9/11 was truly a call to duty for a lot of people. Everybody after that event wanted to do something to help.
for Anthony,
That's some quality sniffing, buddy.
it was joining Boise Police.
This program got launched kind of last minute.
He graduated first in his class, leading to another first
Good.
with the new Airport K-9 unit.
And the chief at the time, Mike Johnson, handpicked me and said, hey, when do you want to go to Texas? And that's where we do all our training, and we just kind of jumped at the opportunity, and it turned into a wonderful career.
A career quantified by 25 bomb threats, 4,200 cargo searches, and 4,300 more hours
Tick.
on foot patrol.
Back then, we didn't think much, and I was so young, I didn't even realize what was happening. We just jumped at it and hit the ground running.
Not toward a finish line, though he got there anyway.
We had a lot of other good canine officers here, but Anthony stayed here.
Mike Johnson was the airport police chief.
Yeah. I was here a year before 9/11.
He started the push for a K-9 unit and got the support he needed
You know, the world changed.
shortly after the attacks.
9/11 happened, and it was, how come we do not have canines, and how fast can we get them? Now you see, like anything, well, why do we have to do this? And because there's still that 1% chance somebody is going to do something.
2 decades under Anthony's watch,
How you doing?
Boise
Good boy.
hasn't had one.
We've never found an actual device with a dog here at the airport. The deterrence factor of having dogs here and having them available, having the good people see them and also the bad people see them, and lets everybody know that we're here to make sure everyone's safe.
They're big shoes to fill,
Good check.
tough paw prints to follow.
Being that he's my third dog and third lab, hey buddy, it just seemed like a natural fit.
Fit for the job,
Good.
on and off the clock.
He deserves that retirement.
Retirement together for a job well done.
Good boy, good check.
He made a joke during that retirement ceremony that the first thing he's going to do is a lot of vacations time that he had to put toward his job. Well, he's now going to use that time with his wife. They bought a couple of plane tickets. So, Joe, they're going to be using the airport rather than protecting the airport. It's going to be kind of his first thing he's going out to do. But also, I want to reiterate some numbers here. He's been a police officer for 23 years, so a year before 9/11. First guy on this role. He's had 3 dogs in that time. 3 national security events. This is like a TSA certified program nationwide. So like the Super Bowl, the Republican National Convention, or the DNC National Convention. I mean, they get roped into events that happen across the country. You know, it could be Portland or it could be something on the East Coast. It's pretty impressive that police officers from Boise are getting roped into some national events for what they do. And it's this unit right here that he helped start 22 years ago.
I'm sure people at home might have had the same question I had during the story. You mentioned a retirement, so what about a replacement?
So there are 3 other officer and canine teams that I'm familiar with, and he said his replacement is already working with them right now. So it should be a transition that they seem comfortable with, but they got all that figured out. It's a team of 4 now, so it's expanded since.
All right, good to know. Andrew Bartline reporting on the 208. We will be right back after this break. Back in 1995, KTVB did a story about a man named David Doze, a man who has made a hobby out of turning junk into works of art. From recycled car parts and garbage can lids to bed springs and horseshoes. If someone hasn't thrown it out, David has probably found a way to use it. Dee Sarton introduces us to him in today's 208 Redial.
Actually, that is something I was looking for.
Looks like David Doze has picked another winner.
I've tried to go beyond just hooking up a bunch of mufflers.
That's not to say he wouldn't use a muffler.
That's a leg muscle. Doesn't that look like a leg muscle? You know, I don't know if this is artistic or if it's from that motorcycle accident when I hit my head as a kid, but it looks like a leg muscle to me, so.
So it's a leg muscle. It goes on this horse, which carries this knight, which stands in David's backyard.
Technically, when a horse is in this bad a shape, you're supposed to shoot him.
After all, it is a pile of garbage. From the lampshade helmet to the conduit cable tail, down to the bicycle gear spur on the horseman's heel.
A lot of it was sitting in garages and backyards. A lot of it was sitting along the road.
Under the heat of the welder, old headlights make hooves, and shock absorbers become legs.
Then the horse himself is made out of several layers of garbage can lids. One customer in town actually asked me to build a piece but make it not look too junky.
If it looked too junky, they wouldn't let him build the high school mascot, or let the strip mall be bombed by the Red Baron and his bed spring salute.
Well, you got horseshoes there, you got chain there,
There's
you
chains,
and there's a drip pan of an oil can there. That isn't junk. Probably not to him. It isn't.
It's
It's
art.
probably a piece of sculpture
it's
made
a
out
type of art.
Yeah, you know.
More than a dozen of David's sculptures decorate the street corners of Kellogg.
We get a lot of tourists stopping and looking for pieces.
Good, aren't they?
Out of junk, yeah, it's all junk.
Whether it's dinner forks dressing up this nutcracker or Don Quixote rounded out with wrenches, it's all part of David's own art form called
Resemblism. I think art should resemble something.
like a train.
And they'll look at the train there and they'll say, oh, that's really, is that significant? Does that have any meaning? I said, yes, it's a train, you know. And, you know, what do you call it? Well, the train, you know.
What do you call this?
Art supplies, and it's loosely sorted. I can remember where everything is.
And everything stays where it is with help from the family watch cat.
He's good. He keeps makes sure I don't have any mice messing around with my art supplies. That's the oddball pile. I've got an oven rack collection that's second to none.
And an imagination that's turning ordinary trash into extraordinary treasures.
Now, his head is a Kawasaki, I believe.
I wonder what he's up to these days. Oh, we checked in with him just last week. Here we go. And he's still making art. That's the news. Although he is making it a little bit differently these days, but his overall approach is still the same.
I do. I've expanded. My last couple of pieces include some of my newest passion, which is stained glass and cast glass. So I did a 50-pound butterfly made out of junk metal, but all the wings were cast in glass.
Wow.
So yeah, I've expanded a little bit. I'm still doing the recycled metal as the main theme. I did a giant 17-foot tall antique clock tower for a garden in Coeur d'Alene, in the Coeur d'Alene area. Most people can't tell it's junk until they get right up to it and start looking at what it's made out of. I've done a few windows. I've done some specialty tiles projects for folks, mosaics. So it's expanded a little bit. It's been fun.
David says he collects his art materials a little differently these days, too. He used to just pull stuff out of the ditch, but now he buys stuff from recycling centers, and he still gets the occasional donation in his driveway. David says that some of his work is still scattered around northern Idaho, but most of his recent stuff goes into private collections. It's also worth pointing out this is not David's full-time gig. He says he's always wanted to keep it secondary, so he doesn't lose his passion for it. In his spare time, he works as a county commissioner for Shoshone County.
Well, if you have spent any time at all outdoors today, you know it is absolutely picture perfect in the Boise area. The wind from yesterday has died down, temperatures in the low 80s. It is sunny and brilliant blue skies across the region, not just in the valleys, on up into the mountains as well, where temperatures have been in the low 70s. So nice and quiet across the entire Pacific Northwest. We are in for a pretty significant warm up over the weekend. High pressure to the west will amplify eastward, bringing warm, sunny, dry air our way. In fact, by Saturday, we're within a few degrees of a record high in Boise. Big changes in store next week. A lot of ground to cover between now and then. So the exact timing of when this big shot of cool air is going to come in looks a little bit iffy still, but my best guess is next Wednesday and Thursday. We'll see some of the coolest high temperatures we've had in quite some time. Lots going on this weekend, from the Boise State game on Saturday to Hyde Park Street Fair and Roaring Springs final weekend. Look at the temperatures for all of that. Highs around 90 each afternoon in Boise. Still really pleasant on Monday. Then here comes that cool down next week. By Thursday, morning lows in the 40s and highs only in the 60s.
The Freak Alley Art Gallery in downtown Boise is getting a fresh look. If you're not looking at your TV screen, this is a good time to look at this. This is amazing. Several artists are spending this week putting their personal touches on the gallery. Photojournalist John Mark Crum stopped by as they put a new face on the Freak Alley Gallery.
Freak Alley is all the misfits, a unique, one-of-a-kind experience that you can't find anywhere else in town.
Something that's been iconic.
Very special to Boise.
Freak Alley Gallery is located in the heart of downtown Boise. It is kind of like the heart of our community. So if you're new to this community and you've never been to Freak Alley Gallery, this is where you get a little taste of who we are.
What we're doing now, we're just refreshing some murals. We're painting over old ones, which is kind of a bummer, but like it's just kind of embracing this constant refresh of artists.
There's so much talent. We brought 22 artists down here, all locals, to show their story.
I'm going to do the birds and the cat next. I think people have been waiting for a long time for the next Freak Alley refresh. My mother passed away, and I was in her basement, and I wanted to start making art for myself, and the first draft I did while she was ill was of these floating islands. So this will be dedicated to my mom. She did push me to be who I am.
And all the artists that are in this space are Boise based.
There's just a lot of value in being able to reach out and say like, hey, my neighbor painted that. So this is an old photograph from probably around 1912 or so of 8th and Idaho Street, where the old city hall used to be located. Since it's no longer standing, I thought it'd be cool for us to kind of see a peek into old Boise. I think I really love the juxtaposition and the way that we can see the difference between where Boise's been and where Boise's going.
I love the cats. There's lots of people who dreamed about being an artist in Freak Alley Gallery. Yeah, because they've grown up with it.
As a kid, I saw this place, I walked through this place, and I was so impressed by all of these artists coming together, and I knew that I wanted to be involved in that when I grew up. And now, like, it's really cool. Now I have something up here that will eventually get covered up, but that's just like the beauty of it. Just knowing that people care. Not to be dramatic, but it is very much a dream come true. So I'm really happy to be involved in this.
And did you just do it all with like oils?
It's essentially just like local artists that are contributing time and supplies and everything like that. We're not getting paid, so we're just doing it because we want to contribute to this place. I think that's really cool, which is partially why I really wanted to be involved. Art helps you see the beautiful things in something mundane.
Art changes and evolves, and it's a shared joy.
And the artists will be down there for a few more days. They're expected to wrap up on Saturday, so be sure to stop by and check it out as it evolves. We'll wrap up the 208 with your comments after the break. Take a look at some of your comments to end the half hour. This person says, Joe, when is the next West Bonner School District Board meeting scheduled for? According to the district's website, it's on the third Wednesday of every month for their regularly scheduled meeting. So that would be next Wednesday, September the 20th. So we'll keep you updated on that. Next comment, with respect to the sexual assault training, it should be mandatory. Both medical professionals and educators are required to complete. Yep, I would say that is the way this is headed. This person says regarding the story on the retiring Boise Airport TSA agent, does his dog partner get to retire with him? Sharon, yes, the good news is the dog partner retires with him as well. And this person says someone's junk is someone else's treasure. Perfectly illustrated. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.